over there, over there. Send the word over there. That the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming. The drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer. Send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over there, over there. Send the word over.
Hey everybody, this is Joshua LITTRELL. Holy cow, it's the Veterans for Cannabis podcast, and guess what? This is the last one of 2020. I hope to goodness that you, I, and all of our listeners around the country and around the world are kissing 2020 right on out the door and goodbye, because I think we've all had enough of it, right? Well, we're going to look ahead on this podcast. Today on Veterans for Cannabis, we're going to talk about what does industrial hemp look like in 2020? What does medical cannabis potentially look like in 2020? Scratch that on both of those, right? Forget 2020. We're talking about 2021. So we're really going to focus on what could really happen in 21. With the new administration coming in, we could potentially have a Senate flip. It could go from Republican controlled to Democratic controlled right here in this state of Georgia where I sit now. Holy cow. It's going to be interesting. And guess what? This podcast is available before the end of the year. So if you are a voter in Georgia, please go out and vote in January. You got to vote for these Senate candidates. I'm not telling you who to vote for. What I'm telling you to do is go do your research on each one of them that is available to vote for and understand where they are, who they are, and what their vote would be on cannabis-related issues. I will tell you right now, you've got Raphael Warnock and Senator Kelly Loeffler in one race, and you have Senator David Perdue against John Ossoff in the other Senate race. So if you're not a Georgia voter, I bet you know somebody in Georgia. I bet you know somebody that has friends in Georgia. I bet you have friends in Georgia that you could get on social media and say, hey, where do you stand on these two Senate races? Who are you going to vote for? And where do they stand on cannabis-related issues? That's how we get things done. Understand who you're voting for, then go vote. And I know we said we're going to close 2020 out, right? And you thought that 2020 voting was over. Well, in fact, it's not. We have to roll this 2020 vote for the two Senate seats in Georgia into damn 2021. January 5th is when this new vote will be, and we need all of you to be aware and open and honest and available to vote for these Senate races here in Georgia. So what could that mean? What could that mean? What could that mean? Well, it could mean a number of different things. If the Senate stays just the way it is right now with Senator Perdue and Senator Loeffler, if they become elected, again, reelected, I guess, would be the answer on that one. Yeah. Actually, Kelly hasn't been elected yet, but nonetheless. So if they get elected, then that would mean Republican control. I think you all know who Mitch McConnell is. He's an arch nemesis of the cannabis industry, and Mitch McConnell would absolutely not do anything to help our cannabis industry. And in fact, he has put roadblocks up at every single intersection that we've had where the House passed a bill that was cannabis related. Old Uncle Mitchie said it ain't coming out of my Senate, not in Kentucky. I mean, not in the United States Congress. It's crazy. It's asinine. It's frustrating because you all know where we stand on this cannabis issue, but we need Uncle Mitchie to come on our side, but he's not going to do it. So, David, Kelly get elected, Republican controls, you know who controls the Senate. There's no doubt about it. All right, so what happens if Warnock and Ossoff get elected? That means the Democrats control the Senate. That also means that we could probably get legislation that got passed out of the Democratic-controlled House, passed through the Senate, and onto the president's desk for signature. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a chance of that happening. And we've also invited Senator Perdue, Senator Loeffler out onto our podcast and have not heard back from either one of them. We've also done the same with Warnock and Ossoff and have not heard back from either one of them as well. So who knows? Maybe this time next year you'll have a good opportunity in December of 2021 to say, wow, we got so much done from a cannabis-related experience based on that one podcast we had way back in 2020. But who knows? So it could go a number of different ways. Just be active, be involved, and vote, vote, vote. All right, I'm off that soapbox. We're past all the election stuff. What's going to happen for hemp and cannabis in 2021? I can tell you right now, there's a lot of great things that we've talked about throughout the year here in 2020 that, you know, we've got all these different provisions that are in bills in the House and also in the Senate too that could really help improve our process. But there's a really consequential new provision in the Senate Appropriations Committee that in the short term, basically it criticizes a proposed hemp rule from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, and that hemp rule, which, you know, standardizes hemp, industrial hemp at 0.3% THC. Do you all know where that came from? Hold on a second. Let me ask Willie Nelson, who's on the wall over here. Hey, Willie. Oh, you don't. He doesn't know either. What about no? Nobody knows where that 0.3% THC came from. That's really interesting. The USDA just reached in and arbitrarily pulled out a 0.3% THC number and said, this is the law. This is the guidelines. This is what we're putting forth. So since 2018 Farm Bill got passed, the United States Department of Agriculture has they've basically had an open comment period, and I think we've had a number of different podcasts on that over the past year, and I've asked you all to get involved and comment. And thank you so much for commenting during that open comment period. Well, you were heard. I don't think it wasn't exactly what we were saying, but you know what? It worked because as it's defined right now, the USDA defines it as 0.3% THC, but the agency is proposing the new percentage to be 0.5. Actually, really what they're saying is they're trying to figure out where does your arbitrary number come from? And the farmers who exceed that limit, that 0.3 or 0.5 limit, they're actually technically have to destroy their crop right now. So this Senate panel, the Appropriations Committee, is pushing back really, really hard on the USDA, urging them to reconsider the arbitrary policy in light of the stakeholder feedback. That stakeholder feedback is you, the listeners, here on this Veterans for Cannabis podcast. Thank you so much for doing your part and getting involved and submitting your comments. You know, we submitted a number of comments from Veterans for Cannabis standpoint. I personally submitted some. Can't tell you all how many veterans in our network submitted some as well. So we were actually heard, which is really good. So that Senate report also says that another USDA provision creates roadblocks, in quotations, creates roadblocks for farmers by requiring an unrealistic time frame for testing. It also goes on to ask the agency to, in quote, ensure that any final rule is based on science and will ensure a fair and reasonable regulatory framework, end quote. That is a great quotation. I know I read that to you because I thought it was just such a great way to punch them right between the eyes and make their nose bleed and do it while smiling at them. I want to read that one more time. End quote, ensure that any final rule is based on science and will ensure a fair and reasonable regulatory framework, end quote. That's awesome. So the advocates, the stakeholders, you and I, all of us who submitted comments, have made similar arguments since the USDA released their interim rules. There's a lot of other cannabis-related provisions that are out there too. In prior appropriations bills and some of the other bills that have been through the House as well, they include a number of different measures. First and foremost, banning Washington, D.C. from using its own local dollars to implement a regulated marijuana market and protecting state medical cannabis programs from federal intervention. Additionally, lawmakers continue to flag barriers to marijuana research caused by federal prohibition. We're going to go into that in just a little bit, too. That's a big part of it. And I think maybe Veterans for Cannabis will have a really, really good inroad into potentially getting some grants and funding this year to do some good research. We've got our university set up with Tuskegee, in talks with the University of Georgia. If they ever get their hemp program back up again, we may be able to get the funding that we need to do the research that we need to conduct as well. So there's a new section that's going to ask NIDA, which is the National Institute on Drug Abuse, to add more cannabis-related questions to an annual federal survey of young people. Now, the first time I read this, I was a little taken aback. I didn't know how I quite felt on this, but I want you all to think about it as I read this, and then submit to us on what you think and where you're standing at as well. On our Twitter account at VF Cannabis and on Facebook at VFC USA. So specifically, lawmakers want to include measures of consumption of flavored marijuana vapes and marijuana edibles flavored to appeal to adolescents. First time I read that, I was really taken aback. Like, damn it, I don't want those. I don't want them to ask those questions. But you know what I did? At the same time, I thought about my nieces. I thought about my niece that's 16. She's about to be 17. And, would I want to know what she's using? Would I want to know where she's getting it from? You're damn right I would, especially if she's not talking to me or talking to us or talking to the people that are in the know, right? So I kind of took a back seat on that. I changed my stance that on this measure that specifically says consumption of flavored marijuana vapes and marijuana edibles flavored to appeal to adolescents, they want to know the feedback on that. I think it's good because I think we need to know where kids are getting stuff from, right? And I'll tell you about it. One of the things I think you and I and all of our listeners here that bought stuff in high school, if they didn't, and, I think you all know my history. I didn't actually do this in high school. It wasn't my thing, but I was around a bunch of people who bought cannabis. So you could see what it was, you could smell what it was, and you knew what it was. Now they're getting these vape pens. You don't know what's in it. I mean, I think we all saw what happened out in California this year with the people getting sick from vitamin E or what the hell ever they were putting into those vape pens. I mean, that's crazy. So it terrifies me that my own niece that I got to thinking about, that what if this was her? Well, how would I feel? I absolutely want to know where this stuff's coming from and how are they marketing to them, because what we need to do is educate them on why not to use that. Or if they're using it and they have a medical reason, get them a medical card. That's all we need to do. We just need to make sure that the questions are being asked and we have all the information and the answers to what the issues are. So just think about that. Submit your feedback to us. Let us know what you think about them asking additional questions on the annual federal survey of young people. And also in the appropriations, the spending bill, the committee also ran a report that cannabis provisions largely align with prior year's spending bill. When they did a report and analyzed it, what are they doing? Where are they spending their money at? Where's this going? Well, for the most part, most of it is going about the same place. But beyond the DC and medical marijuana sections, senators also called for $5 million in funding for Food and Drug Administration research into cannabis and its derivatives, protecting state hemp programs, and expanding marijuana studies within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. That is huge, really, really, really huge. Now, I know you all heard $5 million. What's that going to do? But, it's not going to do a lot, but it can do something. And I hope that we're able to access a little bit of these funds so that we can do some of the research here on our own as well with some of our products. We've got our Delta 8 product now that's come out, and the gummies, our CBD only, our full spectrum oils, possibly vape pens here early in 21. But the real fact is we need to collect that data and be able to garner clear, concise information from our base. That's you all, the listeners. That's you all, the, quote, patients, right? That's you all, the consumer base. So $5 million in funding for the FDA to research into cannabis and its derivatives, that's it. I'll take it. I'll take it all day long. Now, that means, Delta 8, that means CBD, CBG, CBN, potentially terpenes. We have so many different things that we can research and that we need to research on that that $5 million could really help out with. The House also advanced its own appropriations bill over the summer that included broader cannabis reform policies, and we've gone over that in the past Veterans for Cannabis podcast. So there's some overlap between the two chambers, the House and the Senate. The House